and you hold it over a bowl or squeeze it, it just ejects everything. One squeeze proves. Put that no. Handle that. Yeah, put that in the power on. So, and when you electrocute, this is what you stuck in, and after many things, it moves away.
And that is what they came from, and the natural tendencies they have, their instincts to take care of themselves. So, how many of you went to Katrina's talk yesterday on aviaries? Okay, y'all are my people. Not saying you're all my people, but one of the things that I love about some of the things that you've done is you've created a natural environment to get to see some of the instincts that get lost in production, like broodiness and like watching them go nuts over bugs or like cleaning themselves. But when you take a little bit of time to observe the animals and see what they're doing in your space, because there's so many right ways to raise quail, and there's a lot of great ways to enrich them in the housing choices that you've made for your situation. If you start observing your birds, you'll be able to see some stressors, some signs of stress. One of the things that you might see is a lot of pacing or a lot of panting, walking up and down on your cages, even in an aviary when I have slacked in my enrichment. And you might see somebody getting picked on, somebody having all these things, or you're just not seeing happy birds. So that's where enrichment kind of comes into play. Now, I've got to go to my notes because you know I'll be like, so this was this cool story that I had, and I want to tell you about it. So adding enrichment doesn't have to change how the amount of time that you spend with your quail. It can be very simple. It can be very easy. It doesn't have to add a lot of burden to you as the animal caretaker of the animals in front of you. And so what I'm going to talk about is first the benefits that you're going to see when you add a little bit of enrichment, and then I'm going to go over a couple ideas that you can. My brain just broke. What's the word when you're going to do the thing? Implement. Thank you. All right. So when you're implementing it, it's not going to cause a lot of extra chores and things like that. So there's lots of options. So multitasking. You guys, I told you it's going to be entertaining. All right. So some of the benefits that you're going to see when you take a little bit of time to enrich your quail's lives. So you're going to have ones that are going to be mentally stimulating, which is really good when you have bored animals. I mean, if you're in the same four walls and you don't have anything entertaining, you might go a little crazy, right? There's also going to be the benefit of improved health, and that's going to be, I'll talk about that in a minute, enhanced nutrition. We had a great speaker just before me talking about nutrition. I'm not going to go into details, but I am going to share a couple of things that you can add.
By this number. We have a whole group of people whose job is to keep the press and animal rights activists and all the people that want to make the industry look bad, keep them at a distance. For one reason, we don't want unknown individuals coming into a situation and becoming vectors of disease themselves. And we also don't want people tar and feathered, so to speak. Confidentiality is very important for what we do. The other thing is, if we find pollen or avian influenza and it turns out to be a real positive, we do sometimes get false positives, and we have a protocol for dealing with false positives. It's never the case that we're going to come out and test you once and find a positive and just say you have avian influenza. There is a process of multiple testings before we say that it's officially a positive. In avian influenza case, it probably means you're going to lose your flock. The industry has a lot of euphemisms for losing your birds. We depopulate, we have ventilation shut down, we have all kinds of horrible things that we say that all sound sort of kind of nice, but really it boils down to killing a lot of birds. In the Defiance County, that was 3.7 million hens. They had that facility depopulated in a week. They use ventilation shutdown, and what they do is they shut all the fans off and they heat the building up. They put space heater versions in the building to heat it up to 120 degrees, and all the birds die of heat stroke and suffocation. It's horrible. It's terrible. I spent a whole day back in January listening to how they deal with this. So why do we do this? Because we're trying to deal with the problem when the viral load in the environment is as low as possible. So keeping in mind that we have a moral and ethical responsibility to continue to feed, eat, and water and take care of the animals as long as they're alive. And as long as we're sending people into a facility with an active viral infection, there is a risk that one, the viral infection can escape that building and spread to other flocks. And also there's a risk that it can spread to people. So last year we were cleaning up a farm in Colorado, and we always swab the workers before they go into the facility, and they put in all of their personal protective gear, all the suits and everything. And most of these guys are also wearing some version of like a scuba mask, a self-contained breathing apparatus. And one of the workers came out of one of these facilities where they were cleaning all the dead birds up, and he had avian influenza in his nostrils. He didn't get sick, knock on wood. That was very fortunate. But we have had instances where avian influenza, even in recent times, not so much in the U.S., but over in Asia in particular, where people have gotten avian influenza from sick birds. So we go in, when there's only a few birds sick, and if we let the disease run its course, it's going to take several weeks to completely decimate your house. And then, so like I said, in the meantime, the disease has a chance to mutate, become more virulent, get outside the containment facility and spread to other flocks. So we just go in, we depopulate the facility as quickly as possible. In last year, they took 30 days to compost. That was the disposal method they chose for the 3.7 million hens. They brought in 100 or something truckloads of wood chips to mix with the dead chickens. And they made windrows that were 15 feet wide and 15 feet high and snaked 7 miles over a 30-acre field. And in 30 days, the piles had reached the required temperatures to say that we have killed all the disease particles. And then they disinfected the buildings, and within 75 days, they were bringing in new chickens into that facility. There's a percentage of the birds that do survive these outbreaks. And so the question last year, which I didn't have a really strong answer for, is why don't we use those birds to breed resistant birds? And so I wanted to emphasize, touch base on that this year. One, the industry is very segmented. The companies that do breed laying hens are very much concerned with resistance and are working very hard to breed resistant hens through a variety of techniques. The goal of a laying farm, though, is to produce breakfast eggs, and their goal is to get up and running as quickly as they can. And so let's say you lose 70% or 80% of your hens, and you're going to bring in new hens to replace them. That's at significant cost. So you're not going to risk those new hens that a chance of one of the surviving hens is still a carrier.